I didn't recognize the name right away. It arrived as a reply all in a project thread that had been quietly progressing for months. One of those lengthy email chains where people mostly exchanged updates and attachments, with the occasional thank you message before everyone disappeared again. Then the tone shifted. "We are done. Send me the password to the shared drive and clear out your desk." No greeting. No explanation. Just that. For a moment, I figured it had been sent to the wrong person. That happens. Someone replies too fast, copies the wrong distribution list, and suddenly people are reading internal disputes they were never supposed to see. But my name was on it, and the shared drive he referenced was ours. Not ours as in their company. Ours as in my company's infrastructure, running under contract for them. I opened the sender's profile. The last name caught my attention first. It was one of those names people inside the company tended to mention carefully. The CEO's surname. The title underneath was new. Vague. Something that sounded executive level and hadn't existed a month earlier. Nephew, someone had casually mentioned during a call. I read the email a second time. "We are done. Send me the password to the shared drive and clear out your desk." Technically, it wasn't incorrect wording for firing someone. The only problem was that I didn't work there. My company hosted the system their teams used every day. The shared drive wasn't a folder sitting on their network. It existed within infrastructure we managed through a vendor agreement. Their procurement department had spent 6 months negotiating that agreement, which meant one very simple thing. There was no password to hand over. Access didn't function that way. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the message for a little longer than necessary. You learn something after working as a vendor long enough. Correcting leadership inside a client organization can create ripples that don't stay contained. Even when you're correct. Especially when you're correct. But leaving the statement unchallenged would create a different problem. It would allow someone to assume authority over systems they didn't actually control. So I drafted the shortest response that could still make the situation clear. There is no password. The shared drive operates within my company's infrastructure, as defined by our vendor contract. I stopped for a moment, then added one additional line for clarity while copying legal. No dramatic punctuation. No commentary. Just documentation. I pressed send. For a few seconds, the message sat in my outbox before disappearing into the thread. Then nothing happened. Around me, the office continued with its usual rhythm. Keyboard clicks. A printer somewhere down the hallway. Someone quietly laughing during a phone call. I opened another ticket and started reviewing storage logs. The drive had been seeing heavier traffic that week, and I wanted to confirm that nothing was slowing down. About 10 minutes went by. Then my inbox chimed. The message wasn't from the nephew. It was from their legal department. The subject line still carried the same thread title. When I opened it, the email itself contained almost nothing. Legal had simply forwarded the conversation, but the recipient list had changed. At the top of the thread now sat the CEO. There was no explanation. No added comments. Just the entire exchange placed somewhere it hadn't been before. I felt something shift. Not dramatically. Just a quiet recognition of how information travels inside organizations. Some conflicts escalate through arguments. Others escalate through visibility. I didn't send another response. There was nothing useful left to add. The next few minutes felt longer than the first 10. I refreshed my inbox once, then stopped myself from doing it again. Waiting inside an email thread can feel strangely physical, almost like holding your breath without noticing. Eventually, Another message arrived. This time it was from the CEO. The email was brief. He addressed the nephew by name and explained, in careful but unmistakable terms, that the shared drive was operated by an external vendor under contract. Vendor relationships, he clarified, were not internal employment relationships. The access structure reflected that reality. The tone wasn't angry. If anything, it sounded exhausted. At the bottom of the email was one final sentence directed to everyone on the thread. Let's keep the project moving. Nobody asked me for a password again. Nobody brought up the phrase clear out your desk. The nephew never replied. The thread simply returned to its normal pattern over the following days. Updates. Attachments. Small logistical questions. But something had changed. Requests coming from that department afterward were phrased differently. A little more carefully. People started including context. Sometimes they asked instead of directing. Nothing dramatic. Just a subtle adjustment. The shared drive continued operating exactly as it always had. Files appeared overnight. Teams collaborated across departments. Project deadlines moved steadily closer. Infrastructure rarely notices office politics. But every so often, those politics run into the boundaries that keep systems stable. And when that happens, the correction doesn't arrive through revenge or embarrassment. It comes through something much quieter. A contract. A forwarded email. And the simple realization, sometimes arriving about 10 minutes too late, that authority doesn't automatically reach everywhere someone assumes it does.